In this episode of The Business of eCommerce, I talk with Chris Dayley of Disruptive Advertising. This is The Business of eCommerce, Episode 10. Welcome to The Business of eCommerce, the podcast that helps retailers start, launch, and grow their e-commerce business. I'm your host, Charles Pileski, and I'm here today with Chris Dayley of Disruptive Advertising. Hey Chris, how's it going today?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, it's great. I want to bring you on. I know you specialize in a lot of conversion optimization, and that's kind of a huge topic right now, so I want to kind of bring you on and talk a bit about that. So first, so you're with Disruptive Advertising. What's your kind of role there?
So I am over the testing division of Disruptive. So a little bit of background. I prior to coming over here to Disruptive, I was running my own A/B testing agency. It was called Dayley Conversion, and we specialized primarily in website testing. So helping businesses test their online sites to convert better. And then we also dabbled in email testing. So, figuring out how to increase email open rates, email click-through rates, that kind of stuff. And back in, I think it was 2016, about a year and a half ago, close to 2 years ago, I merged with Disruptive Advertising. And Disruptive Advertising was traditionally just a PPC agency, so focusing on Google AdWords and Facebook advertising. And so my role over here at Disruptive is I basically lead up the testing division of client work. So I'm responsible for promoting and for creating an excellent, making sure that we have excellent strategies in place for our clients to increase conversion rates.
Okay, and so then you specialize, so Disruptive before you came aboard, just to make sure I get it, was kind of focused on bringing more folks to the site, and your kind of specialty is then once they get there, converting them or increasing that conversion rate?
Exactly, yeah. It's a very natural pairing of services, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense you don't have one without the other, right?
Yep.
So then are you more focused on the email side or the website, or kind of do a blend of both?
So we do a blend of both, and that's kind of where it's fun. Is we've got the flexibility to really jump in where it makes sense for our clients. We have some e-commerce clients that have over time built out huge email lists, and so when we have clients that have large email lists, then we will spend a lot of time helping them test and refine their email processes. Getting drip campaigns set up, making sure that. For e-commerce, it's really big to have like cart abandon emails set up. It's amazing how many sites don't have that set up. And so, even getting just some of the fundamentals built out and rolling can have a huge impact. I know we implemented for one of our Shopify clients, one of those like cart abandon emails, which is just, it's an auto email. If someone adds something to their cart and does not purchase, it just sends them an email reminding them that they had that product in their cart. And I think in the first week it generated close to $10,000 in additional sales. Just from getting this this foundational piece set up. And so yeah, there's a lot of really fun things that you can do using email in connection with your website. So we've got the flexibility to kind of do whatever our clients need, but the majority of our work is done on the website side of things, just because usually websites get there's much more opportunity to test on websites than there is to testing email, unless you have a huge email list. So the vast majority of our clients were focused primarily on website testing.
Okay. So then, let's say, so you mentioned a couple things, easy like the cart abandonment. Let's say new client comes to you, e-commerce site, and they want to kind of get started. What are kind of the first things that you look for or talk about, or what's kind of the low-hanging fruit you usually start with?
Yeah, so usually in terms of low-hanging fruit, there's going to be some major opportunities that we're going to look at. But first, we're going to look at how much traffic the site gets. because when you're talking about A/B testing, you want to focus your efforts where it's going to have the biggest impact. And when we're looking at where we're going to have the biggest impact, it's usually the pages or areas where you're going to get the most traffic. All right. So typically for e-commerce sites, that's the homepage. A lot of times you're either going to be sending traffic to a homepage or to like a category page. So if you're, a clothing retailer, you're going to send people to your pants page or your shirts page or whatever. If you are, selling baby bottles, you're going to send them to the lids page or to the, bottles page, whatever it is.
And when you say,
so the two page.
When you say send them, are you talking organic or are you talking paid, or does it matter either way? You just want to see where okay. Yep.
Yeah. So we want to figure out. So what we'll typically do is look at the top traffic pages in Google Analytics, and just to get a sense for where people are going. Usually, what we see is the vast majority of the traffic starts on the home page. So you definitely want to start running some tests on the home page, and then they'll trickle down from there. So you'll go to your most popular category pages from there. And so on. So when we start looking at those pages, we'll just talk about home page as an example.
Yep.
Low-hanging fruit for e-commerce on home pages. One of the biggest things that I think most e-commerce sites are totally missing the boat on is figuring out what should they have on their homepage.
Yeah.
It's the fundamental question, but most e-commerce sites will just make a bunch of assumptions of, okay, well, we've got to have a rotating banner, and we've got to put all of our seasonal, products in there, or our latest deals, and then below that, we're going to feature our popular categories, and then below that, we're going to feature our popular products, and below that, we're going to have a bunch of crap from our blog and social media channels and whatever. And that's just like the standard, right?
A lot of people start with that template, and they, the default template, and they see here's kind of the holes we have to fill in, and put in kind of what the canned data is there, but tend to never really go back and actually test and say, like, why was this there, and does this make sense for us? And, that the blog, for example, that's always down at the footer, that's always there, the last 3 blog posts, but does it actually even, like, move the needle? And does anyone click on it?
Yeah. So one of the first few tests that we'll run for most e-commerce clients, I call it an existence test. It's a very simple test. Anyone can run this. And the idea of an existence test is to discover what content is helping conversion rates and what content on my homepage is hurting conversion rates. So what you'll do is, using a testing tool like Optimizely or Visual Website Optimizer, you will create multiple different versions of your homepage. So, I'll give you an example. So we had a client, Diesel Power Gear. They sell a bunch of all kinds of different stuff on their site. They've got clothing, they've got beard wax and energy drinks and all kinds of stuff. And so what we did is we created 8 different versions of their homepage. And in each different version, we just removed a section of products. So they had their rotating banner up at the top. And then beneath that, they would have men's apparel. Then they have another column or another row, women's apparel, another row, beard care, another row. So they had all these different rows of products. And they thought that was awesome because they're like, oh, well, we've got so many products. People are going to love that. They're going to find something they like.
And people go and they'll try to find a little something for everyone. Hopefully someone picks the thing they want and goes into that. And okay, yeah.
So we tested 8 different versions. Each different version of the homepage removed a section of products. Out of those 8 versions, 6 of them ended up increasing revenue. And when we were finished, when we were finished testing, we ended up removing 3 or 4 different sections of products from their homepage, which resulted in $30,000 in additional revenue within just a couple weeks, just from removing stuff from the homepage.
Yeah, well, why was the removing actually? How does that, if you drill into that, why was the removing actually increasing the revenue?
Yeah, and so what that tells you is when you remove something from your site and conversion rates go up, that tells you that content was distracting people. It was distracting or detracting them from converting. So when you've got an e-commerce site and you have the homepage is the gateway into your website, right? The whole point of your homepage is to get someone to click on something and go deeper into your website. Well, when you have too much stuff, it's easy for people to just get lost. People get fear of missing out, and they go, well, I really kind of like this shirt, but, oh, they got hats down here. Let me check out the hats. Oh, I like these hats, but, oh, they've got belt buckles. Let me just see what belt buckles they have. And they end up talking themselves out of that shirt that they would have bought initially because they just keep seeing more stuff. And so that's why these existence tests are so powerful for e-commerce sites, because if you can just remove some of your products and increase the likelihood that someone will focus on the product they're actually looking for, and clicking through to it, conversion rates will go up. Now, if you remove something from your homepage and conversion rates go down, meaning you lose money if you remove this, then you've also gotten some major insights for your audience, because you found something that your audience really cares about. So if you remove t-shirts from your homepage and revenue drops, you go, okay, well, t-shirts is super important, so let's keep that there, and we can move on to, we can move on to testing some other things. So that's the easiest, lowest hanging fruit test that we always start with, because it helps us identify what content, what products are important, and what products are distracting.
Okay, now when you say conversion, are you talking about an actual add to cart, or all the way down to checkout, or how do you even define a conversion, just to make sure?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so every test we run, we're going to have a primary conversion metric. So we could call that your micro goal. So what's the thing that you want to influence? And then you're going to have macro conversion goals, which might be tracking them all the way through the funnel. So did we get people to the cart? Did we get people to checkout? Did we get people to actually purchase? So you're going to want to track revenue, because you could get a lot more people to click on one of your products, but they might not end up buying it, right? And so you need to have all of these metrics to kind of check for sanity. And so that's part of the importance of having someone who's experienced in analyzing test results. Is you can start tracking all these metrics, and when it gets really tricky is, okay, well, hey, we got more people to the cart, but less people to check out. Well, what do we err in favor of?
Exactly, yeah. So what do you do?
Do we want more cart ads? Do we want more checkouts? Obviously we want more checkouts, but hey, if we get more people to the cart, then maybe we need to do some work on the cart page to get people to check out. So that's where the post-test analysis becomes really crucial. But for most tests, we're going to have a primary success metric. So if you're running a test on the home page, your best success metric is going to be the next step of the funnel. So what we'll typically track is category pages. Did we get someone to a category page? Did we get someone to a product page? If we got someone to a product page, we got them into the site, and that's the purpose of the home page. Now let's focus on keeping progressing down the funnel.
And you kind of work on then moving those rates, at each stage of the funnel.
Exactly.
Moving the rates kind of a little higher each time.
Yeah. You're basically taking your funnel and you're just trying to expand all steps of the funnel. Because if you can get more people into the top of your funnel, your home page, then you assume that you would get more checkouts. But you're still going to lose a large percentage of those as they start trickling down through the site. They go to your category page, they lose interest. They go to a product page, they see that there's no reviews, they bail out or whatever. There's so many things that will affect people later on in the funnel. So it's a really fun space. Doing site testing for e-commerce is so fun, because there's so many things that are happening in a customer's mind. And when somebody's purchasing, there's so many different steps to their purchase decision. There's so many different psychological phases someone's going to go through, from, awareness, just being aware of coming in your homepage and being kind of interested, clicking through, getting a little bit more educated, a little bit more interested. They go to your product page, they start actually talking themselves into buying. And then there's all kinds of interesting psychology that happens in the checkout process, of actually giving up their personal information. So that's where it's so fun, is that each stage of the funnel requires a different approach.
And do you find they're moving through the funnel in one day sort of thing? They come to the site and you're trying to just see someone come to the homepage, immediately click, check out, buy, or are you trying to track people through the, possibly coming back the next day? You're engaging with them on their mobile, they might come back and purchase on a desktop, or how does that actually fit into the whole thing?
Yeah, so the simple answer to that is yes, you want to track all of that,
Yep.
Right? And it really just depends on what kind of product you're selling. Typically higher priced products, if you're selling lawnmowers or I don't even know, oven ranges or whatever it is, higher priced items are typically a longer buying cycle. And so, I think the rule of thumb is anything under $100 is typically an impulse purchase, right? So if your products are under $100, you should be able to convert them same day. If it's over $100, then it really just kind of depends on what kind of a product it is, right? So that's where you can kind of get an idea. You can look at your analytics and get an idea of how long does it typically take our customers to buy. And then the other part of that is, okay, if it takes someone 2 to 3 days to buy, does it need to take them 2 to 3 days to buy? Is it taking them 2 to 3 days because I'm not doing a good enough job converting them today? Or is it taking them 2 to 3 days just because that's how long it's going to take no matter what?
Yep.
And so those are some other interesting questions that you can start testing with. Hey, maybe if we add some urgency to our site, maybe if we add some prompt for them to buy today, maybe that will increase our likelihood that we can get them to convert today as opposed to tomorrow. Because anytime somebody leaves your website, their chances of coming back are drastically reduced. And so your best chance of converting someone is while they're there on your site.
Yeah, and if you lose them, then you have to the whole goal is then at that point to bring them back, and that gets a much more difficult and even expensive process, right?
Yep, and that's when you start talking about things like cart abandoned emails or retargeting, and nothing sucks worse. I mean, every marketer knows this. Nothing sucks worse than paying to get someone to your site once, and then they leave, and you have to pay to get them back again. You're like double paying for that same customer, which, I mean, if you end up getting a paid customer, it's probably worth it. But it's much better to convert them on that first time you pay for them than having to keep paying for the same person to come back over and over again.
So the goal is, hopefully you're not leaning on remarketing for every customer coming to the site. That's kind of your fallback position.
Yeah, and again, what I've found is even on mobile devices, one big thing I hear in e-commerce is people say, "Oh, well, people don't purchase on mobile." I have clients that will say that to me about T-shirts. Like, well, people just don't purchase on mobile, and so our mobile site is not really. It's not meant to convert people. It's just to get them interested, and then they're going to come back and buy on their desktop.
Yeah, there's
and
that old school
that because
that old school mentality, right? Where on your Motorola StarTech, 15 years ago, you probably weren't buying anything, but now with an iPhone, you can go through the whole sales cycle based on a mobile. Is that kind of what you're finding?
And yes, if the mobile site is built properly. So. Yep. The reason a lot of e-commerce sites still think that mobile doesn't convert is because their mobile site sucks. And so they look at their conversion rates. You go into Google Analytics and you compare your mobile conversion rates with your desktop conversion rates. And it's pretty typical. Like when we start working with clients, it's pretty typical for us to see desktop conversion rates being 4 or 5 times higher than mobile. And so as soon as a lot of businesses see that, they go, "Oh, our mobile conversion rates are so low." Well, that just means that mobile people aren't converting. They're just not going to convert on a mobile device, which is a bunch of crap, because if people weren't going to convert on a mobile device, you wouldn't have any mobile conversions. But the fact that you have some mobile conversions, but they're just super low, says we're probably missing the boat on mobile. And that's the case in 100% of the cases that I've worked with, the sites that I've worked with. Mobile conversion rates are low because we're not treating our mobile users differently. We're not giving them a good enough mobile experience for them to convert.
What kind of ratio, let's say you're selling products under $100, what kind of ratio would you expect on mobile versus desktop conversions? Could you see a 1-to-1, or is it still going to be a little off?
Yeah, oh yeah. In fact, I've seen a lot of e-commerce sites where mobile conversion rates are higher because, typically, a lot of times your most engaged audience is going to be on a mobile device, especially if you have a heavy presence on social media. And social media is a great place for e-commerce products. And so, if you have a heavy presence on social media, your audience is engaged. Whether they're finding you through Facebook ads or through, organic content that you're sharing, they're coming to you on a mobile device, and they're, people that come from Facebook, they purchase stuff. It's just but if they come to your mobile site and they get frustrated, and we've all had this experience where you're on your mobile device, you're trying to figure out a website on your mobile device, and it's just frustrating. It takes too long to load, or you're clicking on something and you can't figure out how to check out, or it just looks so awful. It's just like repelling you. We've all had those experiences where we leave a site because it's obvious they didn't take the time to give me a good mobile experience. And if they didn't take the time to give me a good mobile experience, why am I going to trust their product? Like, why would they have an awful mobile site and a great product? Like, it just destroys confidence. And then you're trying to work,
and then you're trying to go back the other direction. Now you've actually dug yourself into a hole, and you're trying to then come back on the desktop. And desktop retargeting is more expensive, as far as I know. Correct?
It is more expensive, yeah.
So then, if you have to retarget them onto their desktop to close that sale, now you're talking it's even more to land that sale.
Yes, yeah, and not only that, but each additional step that someone has to take, each additional step that someone feels they have to take, is it's decreasing the value of your product. And it's the reason that it's decreasing the value is because somebody's perceived their perceived effort, the effort it's going to take them to buy your product, comes out of the value of your product. Okay, it's a $10 product. Is this really worth $10 of my time? Like, I know it's a cheap product, but if this is too much work, it's just a freaking $10 product. I'm not going to spend my time going through this ridiculous mobile process. So anytime you're increasing, you're introducing barriers or friction, or someone has to come back on a desktop device, that's extra effort that's required of them, and people don't like that.
Huh. Well, no, what you just said about an extra step they feel they have to take. What exactly do you mean by it? Like the feeling of an extra step? How would you kind of look at that? That's interesting.
Yeah. So you could view checkout as a step, right? You could view checkout as like, oh, this is something I'm going to have to do, and this is gonna take forever. What we've tested with some of our clients is literally just saying, instead of just saying, check out and just showing people the cost, if you can build up value in the checkout process, like check out in 5 minutes, free returns, free shipping, get your product in 2 days. If you can reignite some of their excitement on the checkout page, a lot of times that can, instead of them going, oh, I have to go through all this effort, I have to put in all my information, they're going, oh yeah, this is freaking sweet. All I have to do is fill out this form. I'm going to get free shipping. I get this discount. It's a one day sale. This is a great deal. I want to do this now. So they want to take that step instead of them rolling their eyes going, great, I have to enter my credit card. I have to go find it, all this stuff. And so same thing with any step of your website. If you can make it feel easy and even feel desirable to your audience, then that removes a lot of the perceived effort in their mind, because they stop viewing it as an effort step. They start viewing it as a step that's bringing them more value.
That's a good way of looking at it, because I feel like we've all been there where you're checking out on your mobile and you get to the checkout page and there's a list of countries and you have to, US is at the bottom and you have to scroll through all the way. And like you said, then find your credit card and you're not sure where that, and it becomes this whole, do I even really want this basically at that point?
Yep.
So adding value there is something I don't think I see a lot of people doing, honestly. That's a good one.
Yeah. And some of the best ways to do that, I mean, if you are going to offer any kind of discount on your products, it's really powerful to reinforce that discount on your checkout page, especially if there's any kind of urgency around it, like it's a limited time offer. Those types of limited time offers increase our chances of impulse decisions, and so, I know that, my wife, for example, I can't even tell you how many times I've come home and she's bought something for me, and I'll be like, I didn't necessarily even want this, and she'll be like, yeah, but look at what a great deal I got on it, And it's like, maybe she bought the product for the same price that they would offer it for regardless, but she felt like she was getting a deal. She felt like she was getting a deal, and she felt so excited about it that she wanted to take action immediately without even talking to me about it, right? That's the kind of website experience you want to create for your audience. You want them to be so excited to buy your product, they don't even want to wait to talk to their significant other about it. They just want to buy it now because it's such a great value, it's such a great deal, and it's so easy to do.
Yeah, we've all kind of been there where you you have that limited time offer and you feel like you have to do it now or else it's going to, disappear or evaporate, in the next 2 hours, and it's happening now with the sale. And creating that online, though, is something I feel like a lot of people haven't quite mastered. Do you have any kind of tips to doing that? On how to actually create that kind of buzz?
Yeah, you have to test because there is no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to the web. So you might even look at one of your competitors, and I see this happen all the time when we're working with clients. I'll go, oh, my competitor has this countdown timer on their site. We got to try that. Or, hey, look at, my competitor has this little pop-up that shows every time someone buys a product on their site. Like, that's so cool because it's like social proof, and it works for some sites. It doesn't work for others. I've shown those little social proof pop-ups. I've tested adding those to sites where it dramatically decreases conversion rates because it's actually creating a distraction on a site. It's something that's popping up that's distracting them, it's pulling them out of this sales experience. Whereas with some other products, people may need a lot of social proof, and that like constant reinforcement of seeing that, Joe Smith in Texas just bought, this T-shirt I'm looking at, like, can go, oh wow, look at this. So it's super important to test, and it's important to so two things. Number one is if you have something that is working. So if there's something on your site that is working, test improving it. So if you have discounts on your website, or if you have a spin the wheel deal, when somebody gets to your home page and you're just getting a crap ton of people that are engaging with it and buying from it, test it to make it better. Test different ways of displaying it. Test different ways of getting people to engage. Test different saying different things on it.
And that's probably the easiest. If you know something's already working, it's a lot easier to keep pushing it than to try to, find the blue ocean, the thing that's you haven't found yet. But if you know there's something that has somewhat engagement, it's probably better focusing there first, I'm guessing.
Yes, and so I always recommend, and it's a fine balance, and this is where, again, having someone that can help you think outside the box is helpful, because it's really easy to also get the blinders on and go, well, we know that this thing works, so let's not change anything because I don't want to screw it up. So you want to make sure that you keep an open mind, that you are constantly iterating on the stuff that works, and that you're also exploring regularly. So I like to recommend to my clients that at least once every 3 months, we probably ought to explore some kind of new idea. Because, again, it's kind of a shot in the dark, but when you find something that works, that works well, it's totally worth the risk of, throwing the spaghetti up against the wall and seeing what sticks. So you want to make sure that you're not neglecting things that could be dramatically improving your site.
Well, then I know when you're on your own first time doing this, there's a question of defining even works, because you might be looking at something and say, 2% of people engage with this. Is that a good number? Is that amazingly high for this particular thing? Is that, very low? And it's hard to know sometimes, are you looking for 2%, 10%, or 50%? And you're going to be off by an order of magnitude, understanding that's, and maybe 0.2 would be actually, a normal rate for engagement with that particular thing. And you're getting a 2% and it's amazing, but you don't even know that. I know I've seen a lot of people struggle with that, of just what should these percentages be at any, an email open rate, for example, a rate from when an item goes into a cart to when you actually purchase it. So things like that aren't immediately obvious unless you've seen some sort of data set. It's hard your first time around figuring out what is the correct rate for each one of those steps.
Yeah, and one of the first things that I'll tell to my clients all the time is they've got to stop thinking about conversion rates in terms of should. Like, what should my conversion rates be? Or what are my competitors' conversion rates? Like, you want to use your data as your own benchmark. So wherever you're at is your starting point. And so what you want to do, instead of trying to match some industry standard or match whatever your competitors are getting or whatever your last business had, take whatever you're at right now, and that's your benchmark, and you just want to start improving it. And so, I've gone and worked with websites that have run tests for years. So they've literally been testing and making data-driven changes to their site for years, and we've still been able to see dramatic increases in conversion rates. I've also worked with companies that have never done testing before, and we see huge increases in conversion. And so it doesn't matter like where you've been, it doesn't matter how much work you've done, it doesn't matter how much research you've put into your demographic, it doesn't matter how many customer profiles you've done or focus groups you've done, like there is always room to improve. And so just taking what you have now and saying, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just this is where we're at, and now we want to improve things. That's the best way to approach testing.
That's a good way of looking at it. Because each site, each industry, each product type, each thing is going to have a little bit of a different, a different funnel to it, different rates, everything like that.
And you can look at the data a lot of different ways. We have an e-commerce client that he'll look at his overall site conversion rate, and sometimes he'll panic and he'll be like, "Oh my gosh, my overall site conversion rate dropped by a whole percent this month. What the hell is going on? Like I thought you guys were testing and increasing conversion rates." And when you start digging into the numbers, going, well, what's happening? Like, are conversion rates going down? A lot of times, that's not the case. A lot of times it's, we increased our email traffic, and our email traffic converts really low. And so we're just getting a lot more crappy traffic right now. Or conversion rates went way up this month. Everything we're doing must be working. No, we just sent a lot more Facebook traffic, and Facebook traffic converts really well. And so there's so many different ways to look at the data as well. And so that's also why you never want to say, like, here's where we should be, this is a good conversion rate. You don't even want to compare your own conversion rates to, like, where they were last month, because so many things can change in a month-over-month basis. There might have been some natural disaster, and most of your clients are in Texas, and there was a huge monsoon storm that blasted Texas, and so nobody was buying anything. And so you might think that, that your site's broken, when in reality it's just, hey, there was crap happening last month, and conversion rates will bounce back once people start getting back online. And so that's why it's just so important that the idea of A/B testing is important, because you're not comparing conversion rates to your competitor. You're not comparing conversion rates to last month. It's, here's our current site. Let's test this new version. At the same time, they'll go head-to-head, and let's see which one performs better.
So now let's say you're coming in fresh set of eyes. You're not comparing conversion rates to anything outside of today. How do you tell where to start? Do you look down at the bottom of the funnel, right at checkout, and say, let's try to increase this first, or let's try to go all the way to the top and bring people from the home page into one of those category pages? Like, how do you plan your first attack then and your first test?
Yeah. So again, basically what we will do is with our clients, we'll prioritize testing opportunities. So prioritizing testing opportunities typically involves a couple of different metrics. So you want to go for the biggest impact, so wherever you're getting the most traffic. You also want to go for the most important. So a page that's really important might be the checkout page, because it's like, hey, if we increase checkout, that's just immediate bottom line revenue. If we increase conversion rates on the home page, we might not even make more revenue, right? So you want to balance the two of those and say, okay, if I get 500,000 visitors to my home page and I only get 500 people to my checkout page, I should not start on my checkout page, because there's not even enough people to test there, right? Yep. Even though it's lower in the funnel, even though it's more important, there's not enough potential impact for us to test on the checkout page. Now, if you get 500,000 people to your home page and you get 50,000 people to your checkout page, then you're really going to need to sit there and go, okay, we're going to need to prioritize this. Hopefully we have the resources to do both at the same time, but if we don't, and we need to just focus on one thing at a time. But for most e-commerce companies, you're going to want to start towards the top of the funnel. So I recommend either starting with homepage or maybe a category page.
and then go from there. So because up there you assume there's the most traffic, so the more traffic you could probably run your test a little more rapidly. Versus if you're getting 50 people at a checkout page, it might take you a week. Or I guess what would be a reasonable number of amount of data to consider a valid test?
Yeah, and it's going to be different for every company because you not only want a lot of visitors, but you also want a good amount of conversions, right? So, so typically, what I will look at is there's a lot of calculators that you can use online to calculate like what should my sample size be. You can say, here's my conversion rate, here's how much traffic I get, and they'll say, oh, you need to run the test for a week. But in terms of like standards or benchmarks or whatever, I never run a test for less than a week. So even if you get a ton of traffic, you want to run a test for a full week because conversion rates are going to be different on every day of the week. And these are actually really fun reports to pull. If you go on and you look at your conversion rates by day, your weekend traffic is going to convert way different than your weekday traffic. And so you don't want to call a test after just running it Monday through Friday because you haven't seen how it performs with week traffic yet. It might totally flip-flop, and I've seen that happen with tests before where you have one version that's winning by a long shot, and then the weekend comes and it flip-flops. And so that's again.
I was listening to someone talk about the other day. They had a online jobs board. You go in there and look for a job, and every Sunday night they would see their traffic, drastically spike because people were thinking of Monday, and thinking I have to go back to my job, and so Sunday would be this massive outlier for them, and then Friday, traffic dips. Nobody cares about getting a new job. So it's just
before the weekend.
Yeah, before the weekend, you kind of forget. You just do the weekend, but Sunday night was their big day. So that's a good one.
Yeah, so never for less than a week, no matter how much traffic you get. And then you want to just run it. The great thing about a lot of these testing tools is they will offer some like statistical significance calculations, which you don't want to call a test just based on that. But typically what I'm looking for is consistent data. So I want to see that something is winning for more than just a day, right? So if I launch a test and I see one of the variations is winning consistently for a full week, assuming that I have a good amount of data, assuming I have, I usually shoot for a few thousand visitors per test variation, then that'll be a good place to start. Saying, okay, I probably have enough
winning,
data.
How do you define actual winning versus, is this a 49 to 51, or what kind of, like, what is actually significant with that?
Yeah, well, and again, that will just depend on the amount of data. So it takes a lot more data to determine a small lift. So if you're increasing conversion rates from 1% to 1.1%, which is a 10% lift, it's not bad. But to detect that kind of a small change, you're going to need a lot of traffic. Okay. Right, but if you're going from a 1% conversion rate to a 20% conversion rate,
it doesn't matter. Like, it won.
you need you'll still need to run that test for a decent amount of time, but it's like you'll get statistical significance really quickly. And so again, it all just kind of depends on how big of an impact are we seeing. The biggest mistake that I see new businesses make that are trying A/B testing is they want to capitalize on the impact as soon as they see it. And so day one, we're seeing a huge increase. Let's call it. But you need to give it some time to calm down, because when you're first starting a test, every single conversion is going to affect conversion rates like crazy. It's like, hey, wow, we doubled conversion rates. We have 2 conversions and the other one has 1. Like, yep. You didn't double conversion rates. You just have 1 extra conversion. Like, that's nothing. So it's super important to actually go in and make sure that you've got a decent amount of conversions.
Yeah, I see that's the hardest thing when people are first starting off, especially when you're talking about the checkout page. You might not be getting that many actual add to carts per day. So then, like you said, people are excited. So you want to find out something quick. And with a day's worth of data, there's just not enough there to optimize that.
Yes, exactly.
Do you, in circumstances like that, do you try to get paid traffic to come in just to, up that data, or does that kind of skew your numbers?
Well, I mean, likely will skew your numbers if you haven't already been running paid traffic there. So if you're already getting a lot of paid traffic and all you need to do is just up the budget and get more of it, then that's fine. But if it's like, hey, this is our site and we get tons of organic traffic, or we get a little bit of organic traffic and then we're going to add in a new traffic source to the mix.
Yep.
Every traffic source converts very, very differently, and so that is going to skew your numbers if you change traffic sources in the middle of the test. So you either want to start the test off with your traffic source sending traffic, so that you can keep your traffic consistent throughout, or if you get 2 weeks into a test and you're like, wow, we're just not getting a lot of conversions, we need to send some different traffic here, just start a new test.
Okay.
Because it's just going to be completely different visitors that are coming to your site.
So is this something then that folks that are just starting off in e-commerce are able to do, or is this something you have to kind of wait until you have some sort of traffic, or is this some sort of hack you can do to, you want to get started, you launch a new site, and a few weeks in you want to start kind of checking testing. Is that something you could do at that point, or you need to wait before you really have some traffic getting funneled in?
Well, I mean, you need traffic in order to test. And so, if you launch an e-commerce site and you're getting 10 people a week, like, you're not going to want to do any A/B testing. But, I mean, if you launch a site and then you're doing a big marketing push along with that, and you start driving 10,000 visits in a month, then you want to start testing immediately. Because, the way that I look at it is anytime, if you get a decent amount of traffic to your site, anytime you're not running a test, you are missing out on a major opportunity to learn. You could be learning, and there could be something that's performing better than what you have now, and so you're wasting opportunities to learn with your traffic. So, it is a numbers game though, and so I usually recommend that people don't think about testing until they have at least 5,000 visitors to their site per month.
Okay.
That'd be like the bare minimum.
Okay. Yeah, because anything over that, then you're talking tests are probably going to be taking weeks to run even two variables. So then you're gonna, you're not going to be moving at any reasonable rate at that point.
And because you have such low traffic amounts, things could change so much on a month-over-month basis. So if you're running a test for 2 months, well, I mean, by the time you get to the end of the first month, you've got so many things that have changed, especially with a new site. You probably have changed things on the site. You've probably changed things with your traffic, with your audience, seasonality. Things may have occurred. All of a sudden it's winter time, and so, people are going to be converting different than they did during the fall, or, there's just so many things that will change. So, yeah, it is important to wait until you get a decent amount of traffic.
Yeah, because then there's also that, like you said, a max amount of time that you go into summer, going into the holiday season, that sort of thing. So if you go, it can't be, it can't be too short, but can't be too long either. So you need this kind of a sweet spot of, sounds like around a week, basically, if you can do that. Get enough data that you can actually tell, but not too much where actual, the time of the test might start coming into play.
Sure, yeah.
What are some other kind of gotchas that you see that people run into that are a bit surprising?
Well, so website redesigns are a big deal. Everybody's doing these all the time. I can't even tell you. I think I could flip a coin when we're talking to new clients and we're saying, hey, let's do some website testing on your site. It's probably 50% of the time I will hear people say, oh, well, we're either working on a website redesign, we're about to launch a website redesign, we're about to start a website redesign. I mean, people are doing these constantly.
And are you talking UI or URL structure or like replatforming? Like what level of redesign?
Yes, all of the above. So I mean, it's just it really just depends, right? Okay. So some companies, if you're on Shopify, it's really common to like change your themes, right? You change your theme on Shopify, and it's like a fairly easy way to like redesign your site.
And URL stay the same. Checkout process is still the same, but the actual UI changes.
You're just restyling it. Yeah. So
it.
So that's one way. I mean, other sites will completely overhaul their entire site. They'll change everything. But the ones that I see most frequently are UI changes. So you're changing the design, right? Just the styling of the site.
Okay.
And one big mistake that I see with this is businesses are so eager to change their site and they have no idea why. And usually the reason why that I hear most frequently is, well, our site just sucks. We have to get something up that's better than what it is now.
Yeah, they always say, you always hear it looks old.
Yeah, it just looks old. It's outdated. It's no good. I mean, look at our biggest competitor. I mean, we're so far behind them. We've just got to get something up that's that is halfway decent. The problem with that is you are basically justifying making irrational, poor business decisions, right?
Yep.
I mean, it would be like, website redesigns are kind of like remodeling a store, right? So it would be kind of like if Target, just said, "Oh my gosh, okay, I just went over to Walmart and they've got like energy drinks on every aisle. Like our store freaking sucks. Let's just change the whole thing. Let's shut down the whole thing. Let's start it over, fresh from scratch. Let's do what they're doing." And the fact of the matter is, you don't even know if your audience wants that. You don't know if your audience wants energy drinks on every on every aisle. And so what grocery stores will do, the big ones, is they'll actually test it out. They'll say, "Hey, let's try adding these products at the end of our aisles in like 2 of our stores. Let's see how people respond. If a ton of people buy it, then let's change all of our stores." But
and that's a nice thing because they can actually do an A/B test per store.
Yes.
So flip one store, watch the results versus the equivalent store.
Yeah, but businesses aren't doing that online, and businesses are spending sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars to redesign their sites online. And so before you go in to do a website redesign, it is critical that you start running some tests to say, what does our audience care about? Why do we want to redesign? Okay, if we do need a redesign, maybe we do, what kinds of things should we focus on? Like, if we're just going to go and get some random designer that can make it look nice, is that going to convert our audience better? I have seen clients of mine that have launched sites that cost $300,000 to redesign, had zero impact on sales, no impact on conversion rates. But it looked better, but they wasted all that money because it's not generating a return for them. And they'll say, "Oh, well, but it helps our online brand and all this stuff." Like, and I would just argue, well, if you're going to put all the time and effort into doing this, if you're going to spend all of this time creating your online brand, do it in a way that also impacts sales. And you can only do that if you run some tests first, figure out what your audience cares about, and then make sure you focus on those things during the site redesign.
So then how would you go about actually testing the redesign before, in the case of Shopify where you switch the theme and, one day you just wake up and the theme is completely different and everything's flipped to the new design. How do you actually go about testing that? Is it a time-based thing, or what's that kind of look like?
No, so typically what we're going to do if you're going to change Shopify themes, we're actually in the process of doing this with a couple of our clients right now, is we are breaking out all of the features of the new site. So here are the major things that are changing. We are changing our product page layout to look like this. Okay, let's test that layout against our current layout. Okay, on the category pages, we're going from a product tile layout that has a button to a clean tile layout that just has the picture and the price. Okay, well, let's make that change. Let's test that change on our current site and see if we make that change, what happens. So we actually just did this for one of our clients. They were just about to pull the trigger on a theme change, and they found out that 2 of the biggest features from their new theme dramatically decreased revenue. Dramatically, like 20% decreases in conversion rates. So what ended up happening is we ended up saving them a ton of money and a major mistake of launching that new site, freaking out. Conversion rates are way lower. They're trying to figure out what's going on. Like, if you just tested this and taken a few, the reason the businesses don't like this is because it kind of slows down the process a little bit.
It sounds like because then you're advocating pulling those different UI elements into the old site to basically test them in place first. So you have, so you're changing one variable at a time and not just
one variable at a time. And you don't have to change. You don't have to test all of the changes, right?
Yep.
You want to test the major ones. And so, but it's totally worth it if it saves you from pushing a UI change that is going to hurt your conversion rates. Like you don't want to risk that. And so I just, in as many cases as possible, I invite business owners to not try to rationalize it. And they'll say, well, we've already invested time into this anyways, money into this anyway. I mean, it's like this sunk cost mentality of like, well, I've already put so much money into this car, I can't sell it now. I'm just going to keep driving it till it dies because I've put $20,000 into it and I can only sell it for $1,000. Like, that doesn't matter. The fact is, it's only worth this now. And, you know, so same thing with a website. It doesn't matter that you've already put 3 months into it. Like, it totally sucks to walk away from a site design that you've put 3 months into. But if it saves you your business, or if it saves you an entire quarter of bad sales, you should make that sacrifice to not push that new site design that will hurt your sales.
I'm surprised to see so many times when you hear about this, they have it in, you know, the business functioning, the engine is kind of, you know, churning away, but people are so eager to change it all at once and make this like sweeping change that sometimes in some cases there's no going back. Once you made it, you're there and that's it. And there's no kind of fixing it if it goes wrong. But so many people are so eager to make that flip that switch and go.
Yep, exactly.
Interesting. Yeah, that's a good one. Testing different UI elements, anything like that. So then once you kind of go through, the goal is to test as many of those as possible. So then when you do that big flip day, you're gonna have the least amount of gotchas and surprises possible.
Exactly. Yep.
Gotcha.
And if possible, so I mean, obviously with Shopify, you can only have one theme on your site at a time. But if you have a custom site, if you have your own e-commerce site, it may actually be possible to run your new site and your old site at the same time. And that's my preferred method of launching a new site design is you take you literally run both sites concurrently. And so you split traffic. Half of it goes to your old site, half of it goes to your new site. Run them both at the same time and see how product sales play out.
Ah, that's a good one. And then you could probably keep making changes to the new site until you kind of, you know, rapidly iterating on that.
Until you fine-tuned it, yep.
Yeah, that's a good one. What would you actually use to do some testing like that? What kind of, I know you mentioned, is it Visual Website Optimizer? That's a Google tool?
No, Visual Website Optimizer is its own tool. Google does have an A/B testing tool, Google Optimize, and you can do split URL testing through Google Optimize. It's not the best tool, so I wouldn't recommend it, especially for like a huge website redesign change. But yeah, any of these testing tools can do split URL testing. Like I mentioned, Visual Website Optimizer, Optimizely are a couple of ones that are fairly easy to get started with. Or if you really need to, you can use Google Optimize for free.
Okay. Any other kind of tools you'd recommend along those lines?
So one other tool that I think is critical for that I think every site should be using is heat mapping. So heat mapping tools are really great to layer on top of your analytics. Heat mapping tools allow you to see where are people clicking on my pages and how far down the page are people scrolling. My kind of go-to heat mapping tool is Hotjar.
Oh, okay.
Hotjar actually has a free account that you can sign up for, and you can use it on like 3 pages of your site for free. But it's fascinating when you look at heat mapping. You see exactly where on the page are people clicking.
So what is a heat map for people who don't know? I guess if you've never used them before.
Yeah, heat map. Literally, what it's going to do is it's going to show you little dots that show exactly where on your page everyone has clicked. So you can look at your homepage and say, hey, I've got this scrolling homepage banner. How many people actually clicked on it? How many people clicked and cycled through to the next one? Are people clicking on my products or are they clicking on my menu? If they're clicking on my menu, where are they clicking there? So what it really does is it especially helps you to understand things that people are not clicking on. So most commonly what I will see is either your hero banner, your big banner that's scrolling through. A lot of times those don't get, nobody cares, or they're not clicking on it, so you don't have a very good one. Or if you have videos on your site, a lot of times people are not engaging with videos. Every business would like to think that their audience is going to engage with videos, but unless you have like a really, really cool product, and of course every business thinks they do, but unless you have like a really freaking cool product or a really complicated product, people probably are not going to watch your video. And even if it is complicated, they still might not watch your video. So,
certain products seem to do very well in certain products do very well in video, and others not so much.
And even if you get a lot of action on YouTube, that doesn't mean that people want to watch it on your site. I mean, I can probably count on one hand the number of times that I have gone to an e-commerce site in the last month and watched a video before I bought something. It's very rare. I mean, it happens occasionally, but I would say it's the exception rather than the rule. And if you have like a B2B e-commerce site, like no one probably is going to watch your video. And again, there is a place for video, and it's usually not your site.
So yeah, that's usually more the they're engaging on Facebook, but then after they've seen the video, now they're on the site and they want to buy. They don't want to watch a video again. Yes,
it's not a great way to educate your audience. It is a great way to attract awareness.
Yep. Yeah, actually, on a site that we run here, we did some heat map testing and found there was a place on the site, wasn't a button, wasn't a link, and everyone kept clicking on it. For whatever reason, everyone thought that it was. And we realized people, whatever that was, people want that right there. So we just made that a link. And realizing most people were just clicking on this blank place on the page. So it was a super interesting thing that came out of that test.
Oh yeah, or if people are clicking on images and you don't have your images linked anywhere, that's a really easy fix to make, to go, well, everyone's clicking on this image and nothing happens, so let's have the image take them somewhere, or let's have that actually do something when they click that. Because when people are clicking on something, anything on your site, they're expecting something to happen. You know, one other thing that heat mapping can really be helpful for. So I always tell my clients, your menu on your site should be a means of last resort to your audience. Like if you are getting a
top nav, you're saying?
Yeah, your top navigation. So if you're getting a ton of engagement with your top navigation, what that means is you are not showing the audience the content they want on that page. So if people come to your home page of your website and you're just, and like 40, 50, 60% of your clicks are in your top navigation, that means that the offers that you're showing when they first get there are not resonating. It's not the right stuff.
Okay.
So what I will typically recommend my clients do is, okay, let's look at what are they clicking on up in that navigation. Okay, that should be what your offer is on the page.
And then
if they're clicking on
try to bring that down to the actual,
if they're clicking on men's shirts and your main banner is like holiday deals or clearance items or shoes or whatever, you're obviously missing the boat. You're not giving the audience what they're looking for. So that can be just one other area that can be very, very informative when you're making changes.
Okay, I like that. That's is that something you do with all your clients, kind of that heat mapping, or is that one of those things too?
That's no, I think that's heat mapping you should do regardless of how much traffic you get. So even if you get a tiny amount of traffic, heat mapping can be one of the initial ways that you start gathering data about your audience. So yeah, I recommend that everybody do heat mapping no matter how much traffic you have.
Okay, I like that. That is very helpful. So I want to watch the time, and I think we planned about an hour. I want to go over, want to watch our time here. Is there anything kind of, where people can find you? Any kind of last things people should remember from this? Any last takeaways?
So actually, we've because we get a lot of these questions fairly frequently, and so what we've actually done is we put together an A/B testing starter guide. That is a fantastic resource that talks through the heat mapping. It talks through some of the testing tools that that we've discussed today and how to best utilize them. It talks through some of the best tests that you might think about running initially. And so if people are interested in kind of just getting started with A/B testing and saying what should the next steps be, they can go to disruptiveadvertising.com/guide. And that's just a free PDF download, so you can grab that and check it out. And if you are interested in talking with Disruptive, and if you are interested in talking with Disruptive, if you're like, hey, this stuff is way over my head, I don't even want to bother with this, there's a box you can check in there that says, hey, I'd love to talk with you guys. Otherwise, you can just download the guide and be on your merry way. Okay, yeah, that would definitely be, if people want to run some tests, they should definitely reach out, and even, I'm guessing, some consultation, are you a good fit, that sort of thing. It's probably... Yep, absolutely. Yeah, okay, great. All right, that was super helpful. So I appreciate you coming on today, and I think that's really going to help people out. So thank you for that. You bet. Thank you so much for having me on. This is great. Yeah, absolutely. It was great talking to you. Have a good one. Thanks. Thanks. Bye-bye. Bye.